welcome to the Games for Gamers program. And this morning, as you have seen, we've been covering a lot of different platforms. We started with PC games, we continue with mobile games, and now it's the turn of console downloadable games. And last year it was particularly interesting for me because my son became 4 years old, and he's aware of what I play now. And so you have to, as a parent, you have to be much more careful about what you play in front of your children. And Snoopy Flying Ace actually saved the day because it's an amazing game that I actually can play in front of my son. And we're really glad that we actually contacted Clark at Smartball Interactive, and he accepted to speak. So he's going to tell you about the production of the game.
Thank you very much. Everybody hear me all right? This is like the Call of Duty interrogation chamber up here. It's very bright. But my name's Clark Stacey. I'm the Executive Vice President of SmartBomb Interactive. We're a company that has kind of two hemispheres. One hemisphere, we own and operate National Geographic Animal Jam, which is a virtual world for kids. And the other hemisphere, we make games where you blow stuff up. This was from that hemisphere. And it's probably the last console game that we will do for a while anyway. And I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of the history of how we came to make this game and tell you about it. It's I'll warn you right off, it's not one of those victory lap talks where I come up and tell you why we're so cool and how we made millions of dollars off of this. It's more, here's some mistakes that we made, so hopefully you won't make some of the same ones. So I'm starting just a couple minutes early here because, as you can see, I've got a lot of stuff to blow through. They had recommended when I was putting this together that I come up and show you the trailer of the game first. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to show you a trailer of the game that we were going to make a little bit further into this. And I think it'll be interesting to see the comparison. They also asked me to use this slide template, but I'm not going to. So, brief history before we get to this point. In 2006, we released a game with Namco Bandai called Snoopy versus the Red Baron. This was sort of our introduction to the Schultz family and to Snoopy as a property. The game did fairly well. It was 3 SKUs: PC, PS2, and PSP. It was done very quickly, 15 months. It was done very cheaply, about $1.3 million, which for 3 SKUs was pretty cheaply, for those SKUs anyway. That was networked multiplayer, and it was story-driven, but mostly about the flight combat. A lot of fun. Reviewers seemed to like it, especially for a game of its size and scope. We came out of it wondering what we could have done if we had taken a AAA approach, if we had the opportunity to take a AAA approach, because we really liked Snoopy and Peanuts, and we saw something. We had the opportunity in that game. We were the first ones to build and model these characters in 3D, animate them that way. We were the first ones to create new dialogue for them since their creator had passed away. So what we were thinking is that these characters deserve a AAA treatment. They'd never really been given that, but we thought that they could be the next Ratchet and Clank, Snoopy and Woodstock, as a duo. Most developers, when they get to the end of a project, they say, wow, what could we have done if we had a lot more money and time? The difference for us is that we're a VC-funded company, and our VCs happen to also really like Snoopy and Peanuts. So we were able to go to them and make the case that we should go and license this ourselves and create a strategy around releases on a AAA scale, so that we would have the ability to go purchase the license ourselves at SmartBomb, develop the game to a point where we had something of kind of a vertical slice of gameplay, something fairly advanced, and then take that to publishers and have them carry it funding-wise the rest of the way. So we put together a business case on this. The license itself seemed strong. It felt to us like it was kind of poised for a renaissance. Over $1 billion in annual retail sales that Peanuts still does to this day. It's in newspapers all over the world every day. The holiday specials are still running, and they're still doing very well in their time slots. 1 in 5 Hallmark cards sold is Peanuts, billions of those. In our enthusiasm for the IP, though, we weren't really looking behind the scenes at each one of these. The fact is that most of the retail sales that Snoopy does is infant products and things aimed at moms, not people who play hardcore, dogfighting games. Printed in newspapers. Nobody reads newspapers. It doesn't help us very much. The kids weren't necessarily watching the Christmas special because their parents wouldn't let them watch any more Ben 10 that day. It wasn't the reason that it was families watching it that was penetrating this demographic. The Q score on Snoopy was fairly high among kids, not very high among teens and tweens, and the only character in that whole pantheon that they were really aware of was Snoopy. I don't think they knew many of the other Peanuts characters. Hallmark doesn't help us very much either. So, however, we had other reasons for wanting to do this. We really love the IP. We really had a vision for what we could do with it. We felt like we were going to bring, we'd seen some sort of legacy properties make a comeback and do really well as 3D properties. We thought that we could do that with Snoopy. And when we started building things with them, we had done a lot of this artwork and test stuff early on with the characters. But since we were going to be targeting next-gen platforms, we knew that we could go a lot further, and we had a lot of fun just, creating the look, the 3D look and feel of Snoopy, and creating new characters for it, putting the characters in new settings, kind of creating this farcical World War I Europe. This is our Paris level where we managed to pack all of the landmarks of Paris into one block. This is the Officers Club where Snoopy and cohorts meet. So these were all things that we had test animations, animatics, and things with the characters interacting with each other built around this look. And we were really excited about that. So our investors were convinced. We grabbed the license. We paid too much for it, particularly for the game that we wound up making. But remember, we were kind of targeting a multi-SKU AAA game here, and the license deal, we were not making it with Xbox Live Arcade in mind, which is where the game was eventually released. So the concept then was, can we build a franchise out of this? And we know that if we're going to spend millions of dollars creating a AAA game here, that the only way that we're going to justify that is if there are multiple games and hopefully more things going on with the property. We were given to understand that there was more animation and things coming out or planned with Snoopy and Peanuts, and we felt like we could kind of be on the cutting edge of some of this new material coming out. So targeting what then were the next-gen platforms. We were projecting a budget of 6 to 8 million, which was not a lot for the next-gen platforms, but we're lean, ambitious developers. And it was a lot more than a flight combat game. So here's what we had planned. This was an epic Ratchet and Clank type game. It had on-foot action adventure. You were getting in and out of planes. You could alternate playing between Snoopy and Woodstock. Tons of single-player gameplay, big epic story, big bosses, big set pieces. Basically, we had seen in doing our animatic tests that these characters interacted really well together. You take some characters like The Simpsons and you build them in 3D and they just look weird. As soon as we built Snoopy and Woodstock in 3D and saw them interacting with each other, it just felt right. It felt like they had been waiting to be built in 3D and played off each other like this, that they were natural game stars. I still feel they are, and if anybody would like to make a AAA game with them, then you should talk to me afterwards. But based on these animatics then, the whole plan was kind of Snoopy and Woodstock, new AAA game duo. And all we needed to do was build a really awesome demo that proved that that these characters could anchor that kind of game, build some media around it, take it to publishers, and somebody was going to have to buy off on this. They would be fools not to. What I'm about to show you then is a trailer that we built out of gameplay footage from that demo. So this is all the game mechanics that you're going to see in here is stuff that actually worked. This is the stuff that we were actually taking around and showing publishers.
Yes, I knew him. I knew many famous pilots in the Great War. They were brave, yes. Brave and reckless. But none like him. None like him. He was bold and dashing. Popular with the mademoiselles. But obsessed. It consumed him, this obsession. Food, sleep, meant nothing to him. He had but one thought, one purpose. Someday he would shoot down the Red Baron.
So, big epic game with, oh, thanks. This actually, I think it got out on YouTube, but it really has not been seen a whole lot except for the publishers that we were pitching it to. And so this was part of a big roadmap for a big encompassing plan for Snoopy and the Peanuts IP. We were also prototyping another game called Camp Snoopy at the same time. We were going to be staggering these releases. This was the whole plan, and everything was going to go fantastic with kind of doing this renaissance of the Peanuts IP around these games. The problem was no publishers agreed with us, and we did talk to, I think, pretty much everybody, but what we heard back was that this was not a AAA IP and that they would not commit a AAA budget to it. These were the same publishers who were too risk averse to be creating new IPs, but because they didn't own this, and because I don't think that they quite caught the vision that we had for where this would go, we had a hard time getting publishers to buy off on it. So we were in the position that we could fund this to this demo, which, you know, you can still come to our office and play the game as you saw it there with Snoopy running around and bonking people on the head and everything. But we did not have the funding, with this project anyway, to take it all the way to completion. We had to find a publisher, and what we started to hear suggested to us that Snoopy was the reason that we were being turned down in many cases, that it wasn't necessarily the game that people weren't getting the vision on. They weren't sold on the idea of this license being able to anchor something like this. So, undaunted, we started to reduce the scope. Think, okay, we're not going to be able to get somebody to sign off on a $6 to $8 million budget here. What if we cut back on the number of platforms that we're going to release on? So let's start out by kind of having the debate of all the cons with the different platforms. Well, the PS3 was easy to cut because it's expensive to develop on, didn't have as well-developed a multiplayer community. The Wii, probably a better demographic for this game, frankly, but we were in love with all the cool stuff that we'd already built at a higher resolution. We really wanted to push the animation of the characters. So we cut the Wii and based our plan around the 360, which its core demographic, not the Snoopy demographic, but we felt that we could overcome that. Looking at all the features that we had wanted to include in there, well, the on-foot action adventure is going to be the most expensive thing to build. Alternating between Snoopy and Woodstock is really sort of all about that. Yeah, it's single-player adventure. We really got to focus down to 1 or 2 core game mechanics that we can do really well, rather than an epic game that encompasses many game mechanics. So that left us with multiplayer online dogfighting and flight combat, which is what we eventually released on XBLA. Now the idea was revised down. So people weren't getting the vision, publishers weren't getting the vision to go spend $6-8 million on this. Here's what we would do. Now, we had already spent over $1 million on what we had built between acquiring the license and beginning to build the technology. This was all on our own engine. Advancing our technology from our PS2 and PSP engine into the next-gen stuff. We were already into this a fairly significant investment. We felt eventually we're going to need a full retail game to justify that cost. We're going to have to see the kind of numbers that we can see off a box product in order to make our money back and make a publisher any money. And we were really attached to all the cool stuff that we had built, so we didn't want to turn our back on that and necessarily go a different direction. What we needed was a new plan, and we needed a plan that was going to convince everybody that we were right and they were wrong about Snoopy being a next-gen action-adventure game character. So, step 1, we're going to release a game on XBLA that is going to prove to everybody that Snoopy and Woodstock completely rock and that they can anchor a game like this just as an IP. Then, having sold 1 million units, we invite all the publishers who had rejected us to our new XBLA money room and reveal to them there that we're not going to allow them to publish it anymore. We're actually going to fund it ourselves. We're going to build the AAA game that we had planned on from the beginning, and then hopefully we remember our friends and stay cool when everybody's telling us how brilliant we were and how wrong they were that Snoopy and Woodstock could not be the anchors of this type of game. So, let's talk about how that plan went. It was predicated on some projections that we had done around sales for XBLA. And we did this, you can see the top number there, we figured 600,000 units is the minimum that we're going to sell. Now, Microsoft had accepted this as a first-party XBLA game. That's great because that gives us some marketing muscle from them. They're not putting funding behind it, but they are sharing in some testing costs and things, and they are helping us get on the XBLA dashboard and some other things. So we looked at other first-party Microsoft titles, and we looked at other licenses that we felt were of comparable strength to Snoopy. And we thought, all right, 600,000 units, we can do that in our sleep. The reason being, we looked at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and we thought, we got to sell more than Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. For hell's sake. It's a great game, and it's a good property, but this is Snoopy. He's a seminal figure in the history of canine aviation. He's an American icon. We're going to do 600,000 units, lying down, no problem. How did it actually do? I'm going to show you the sales numbers and the unit numbers and all of that. I don't believe in being coy about those things. I don't think sales numbers, hiding them is a competitive advantage. I think making good games is a competitive advantage. But it did do quite well critically, particularly for an XBLA game. It got a lot of Editor's Choice Awards. It still has a very active player community. It did very well on DLC downloads. So first month that it came out at the end of Q2 last year. It came out in June. The June sales were over 66,000 units. And we thought, great, we're off to a fantastic start. If we just sustain this for 10 quarters, then we're right where we want to be. Now, Xbox Live Arcade and games like this, they do have a longer tail than a retail game. However, once you're off the XBLA dashboard, you're pretty much gone unless you're doing a lot of things outside of XBLA. But really, it's the dashboard where games get sold. The blue line there is downloadable content. That includes avatar costumes and awards. It includes the Charlie Brown T-shirt and Snoopy flying around your avatar, but it also includes a couple of downloadable map packs that we did and some additional game content. So what that translates to for us in revenue, and the numbers I'm going to be showing you here, these aren't gross revenue. This is actual money collected by Smart Bomb as the developer in royalties. It's now tapered off to a level of sales that expect Q2 to look a lot like Q1, and hopefully it kind of stays steady like that for a while. So it's not enough to fund a $1 million development budget, but it's a solid performance. So total so far a little over 150,000. I don't know what the number today is because it is still selling at that rate, but about 150,000 units, a little bit more. That translates into, on the DLC side, including the avatar accessories, about 87 grand there. Microsoft was willing to give us a little bit of a bonus so that they could use the game in some promotional materials for Xbox Live Arcade and for Xbox. So total royalty revenue of a little over 770 thus far. If you're going to launch your game internationally, if you're going to do it first-party Microsoft, you're going to have to do it internationally, then you're going to have to localize and test in a lot of different languages, and that's going to be expensive. You're going to have to, if you're smart, go through a pre-certification, which is where you submit to Microsoft Test before you officially submit to Microsoft Test, so that you can hammer out some of the really big bugs before it costs you too much money. Here's the thing, is that if you're doing downloadable content for Xbox Live Arcade, 99% of the people doing that are doing it at the same time that they're developing the game, and then they're releasing it subsequently. The reason is that you have to test it, and you have to test it with the game. You have to QA it as, you have to basically create the player experience of, I just downloaded a map pack, does it plug in, does everything still work? It's very difficult to release a game and then go develop map packs and go and retroactively test it. It's much more expensive to do it that way. So you're going to have some test costs right up front. So total amount of money that Smart Bomb has made off of this game so far, we haven't seen this Q2 numbers, but as of Q1, it's 619. What did we learn from this? A few things. At the core of it, we needed three of the following. We needed the right game and or right license and or the right market and demographic and or the right game development cost. Fortunately, we had one of them. We did have the right game. The license was not suited for the market, and the cost of development and what we had spent on it was just unreasonable for Xbox Live Arcade. It's not that it's a bad marketplace, it's just not a marketplace where $1 million plus games belong right now, unless they are already blockbuster IPs. With some exceptions, obviously. There are some terrific games on XBLA that are new properties that developers have done that have been very successful. I would say that if we were to do this over again, we would probably launch a new IP on XBLA rather than start with the one that we did. There is a happy ending to all this. So we had built all this technology, we built all this cool stuff. We had started building this big epic game, and then kind of went down to a multiplayer flight combat game, and at that point we still had a lot of the assets and a lot of the cool stuff that we built for the full game. So that's all part of the happy ending that's coming up in a second, but first I'll give you the obligatory do-don't list. Do devote some resources to your upsell messaging. In Xbox Live Arcade, this is, the gentleman who was up here with the Soccer and Zombies game was talking about how the artwork for your icon is so crucially important. Your upsell messaging images for Xbox Live Arcade are the same sort of thing. This is an opportunity. I mean, this is, after all, it's an arcade. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be kind of lighthearted. It's a place where you don't have to take your property too seriously. We had been working on Snoopy and Peanuts artwork for a long, long time, so we had a lot of just cool, fun stuff that our artists had done. I would say, don't do this when you get to the end of the project and think, oh, we've got to have some upsell screens. Do it so that you can really integrate them into the, have them be part of the DNA of the game, and hopefully with something of a sense of humor. This is, you want the player coming out of the game demo experience saying, this is something that I want to spend more time with. It has a nice attitude to it as well as gameplay. Other do's, do it yourself outreach to bloggers is something that you're going to have the opportunity to do whether you want to or not, because there are tons of kids out there who are trying to create their own little game communities, their own little game blogs, and they will come to you. Now, their blogs might not have a whole lot of distribution, a whole lot of readers, but it does have their circle of friends. And these are kind of the alpha gamers. These are the guys who are going and telling all their friends, hey, you got to play this great new game. They'll come to you and say, hey, could I get a review code, and could I get a few to give away on my site? Build it into your publishing agreement with Microsoft up front that you're going to get a ton of review codes, because this is tremendous outreach, and it's a great way to build the community in the forums. You can do a lot of marketing very cheaply. I would recommend their Facebook ads are great to target, because you can target them right at Xbox owners. You can print up some t-shirts and things and send them to those alpha gamers and fans. Don't take the game just to show it to your competitors at GDC and E3. Take it to PAX and Comic-Con, which is where the players are going, and they really value game makers coming and participating with them in fan kind of based shows like that. You will have opportunities. I think Microsoft is eager for developers to come to them and say, hey, I really want to find some creative ways to get my game back up on the dashboard. What can I do to help you promote Xbox Live Arcade? Can we do a deal of the week thing where I give away some DLC in the game? Can we do a half price sale for a weekend? Anything that gets you back up on the dashboard is going to give you a big spike in sales, and that does take a while to trail off. Some things I would recommend that you don't do: don't spend more than $500 on developing an XBLA game. I have a friend who was telling me about a game that he's aware of that has a $750,000 marketing budget for an Xbox Live Arcade game. It's doomed unless there's no way to spend that money effectively, because the only really effective marketing on Xbox Live Arcade is inside Xbox Live Arcade. It's being on the dashboard, and yes, you can buy advertising in there, but you're going to go through it very quickly, and you're not going to be able to sustain that level of sales the way that you would through community building. The avatar accessories and things are great. I think Microsoft is right to encourage developers to have a lot of fun with that and do it. I would say plan for it early in development, and don't make it an afterthought like the upsell screens. We were doing things like when we were building the character models, we were building Halloween costumes for them and things from the Halloween special, from Peanuts Halloween special. So we had a lot of this stuff already that we could release as DLC and as avatar accessories later on. Don't build technology that you can buy, and this is another personal rant of mine. If you want to build an engine, then start a middleware company and build an engine. If you want to build games, then license the damn engine. There is enough work in writing an opera than trying to go down and build every instrument in the orchestra yourself. It's crazy. For us, this turned out very well in some ways, because we had a base of technology that we built, and it's carried us forward, and that's kind of where the happy ending comes in. Our happy ending, and what this team is working on now and is about to release, is a browser-based flight combat game that goes much more deeply into plane customization. Oops, just went backwards there. Yeah. So this is using Unity. This is taking some of the core gameplay materials that worked very well in Snoopy Flying Ace, which is easy to pick up, easy to fly, flight combat game that's a lot of fun, that is not intimidating like most flight sims. Most flight combat games, you're just shooting at a targeting reticle. Here, the planes it's more of the open cockpit, barnstorming era of flight. There's no client download here, so you're in and playing the game within a minute or two of landing on the web page, but it looks and plays like a client-based game or I guess a console game. And it's using a lot of the tech that we had built already. That didn't just get junked, and there's certainly possibilities that we'd be doing console stuff in the future, but Snoopy Flying Ace really was part of Smart Bomb moving to free-to-play anyway. The other half of the company working on virtual world stuff had already made that transition. This part of the company is making that transition now. You can actually go and see some actual gameplay footage from Sky Legends at skylegends.com, and I think that's about it for me. Thanks.
Thanks for that. That was one of the better presentations I've seen this whole conference. I was very interested in the game early on. I was writing for The Atlantic at the time, and Xbox Live reached out to me, and it didn't seem like they understood that my audience wasn't necessarily going to be interested in this game. So I guess I just wonder, beyond just saying reach out to PAX, reach out to these things, what else do you wish, who do you wish that had been reached out to? Who do you think missed the memo on this game specifically?
I wish James Fallows had played it. Did he ever, writing for The Atlantic, ever do anything?
I'm freelance, so
okay.
I'm kind of disconnected.
Who missed the memo on this game? I think PR outreach was not something that we had a lot of money to spend on. We did get some nice PR coverage, and because we were working with United Media and the Schultz family, we were able to get a boost out of that. The message that we were hoping that would get out, and I think what a lot of reviewers led their reviewers off, is saying, I wasn't expecting this to be a great game, but this is actually really a lot of fun. And we had wanted the message to get out that you've not looked at these characters and this property this way before, but give it a chance, because it really kind of kicks ass if you start playing it. If we were to start over right now, I think that we would have reached out to more mainstream media. I'm a little surprised that The Atlantic, of all things Microsoft, was reaching out to, but the USA Today and Time and things like this. It's something that I think, with better coordination with United Media and the Schultz family, we probably could have drawn more mainstream awareness in, rather than just trying to talk to the Xbox Live Arcade audience, which, I mean, their core constituency, I wouldn't say is stoned college students, but there's probably a lot of stoned college students in it.
Well, I'd like to, actually, if someone from the Schultz group had reached out to me, and I could have gotten quotes from those creators rather than just a game designer, then my mainstream outlet would have had that access. So exactly. I guess that would be the advice I give, is if you're reaching out to a mainstream, like I also write for an in-flight, so I don't talk to a game designer, I talk to Stan Lee, and that gets the story in there. So if you're going from an IP like that, my tip would be to find that link there. That makes it easier for me as a writer to go to my editor and say, hey, Mom's going to care about this.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point, and I think you're exactly right. We failed to take advantage of one of the assets that we had there. It really had to do with just the coordination of things between Schultz family and United Media. As you may be aware, since then, the Schultz family and Iconics reacquired the property from United Media, so there was some tumult going on there in the background, but it would have been a very good idea to take advantage of that. You're right.
I just want to second, that was a great presentation, and really appreciate you being transparent with the numbers, because it helps everybody learn. So we also, with Fun Mobility, we licensed Snoopy as well for mobile wallpapers and apps ages ago, and I'd second that there are assets you can draw on in terms of a core fan base, which you can drive to a game, and United Media, can be helpful in doing that. But so we found success with the license, but really kind of vertically with key pockets. And the other thing it did for us was create distribution opportunities. So because we had that content, we could then push more of our own IP into the carrier decks, which, you know, I think you guys played it exactly right. I'm really happy to see the soft landing you have with Sky Legends, but, you know, you sort of create that distribution opportunity for yourself on the back. So sometimes these branded, you know, IP experiences can be a loss leader that creates distribution opportunities for your own content, which is much more profitable. So, you know, I hope it's very successful for you.
Yeah, it looks like that's the way the story is going to end. So we're very excited about Sky Legends. When I look at it, I think without hubris, I can say it's ahead of the curve in Unity and browser-based games. It looks and plays like a console game. And the reason it does is because we got to start on second base because of what we've done with Snoopy Flying Ace. You know, the tough thing in building games is finding the fun factor that doesn't exist in the game design document. We had already kind of nailed the core game mechanics, and it was a matter of bringing it to a wider audience in a free-to-play environment.
Yeah, because we got our stuff on the deck with Peanuts wallpaper, but then we're able to put our own, you know, wallpaper universe up there following it, which actually generated, you know, a lot more revenue.
Right.
But we wouldn't have gotten in there in the first place without the IP. So
Yeah.
it's a
Good deal.
common story.
Unfortunately, we don't have much more time for questions. Thank you very much, Clark.
Sure.